to Crypto Clothesline. We're glad to be here with you. Hanging out the crypto laundry. Getting all the crypto info for you. Crypto Clothesline. Crypto Clothesline. Here comes the money.
Here we go.
Here comes the money.
The money season on Crypto Clothesline podcast.
Ross Ulbricht is serving a double life sentence without parole for all nonviolent charges for creating a website. Please help free this peaceful man. Go to freeross.org and sign and share the petition.
Good morning, Amy Rose.
Good morning, Beauty.
This morning's been an early morning interview, and unlike Chinelle, who sounds like she's been smelling daisies for a couple of hours, I sound like shit. So I've got my early morning voice on.
Well, apparently you can do some vocal exercises to help you with these things.
Oh.
Yeah. So sometimes you can imagine that you're in Africa and you do a sound, which is really good for your voice box.
Right.
And then you can try and be a crow and do crow sounds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been listening to a little bit of public speaking guidance because I've been really quite nervous presenting and stuff lately. So you act like an idiot before you go on stage so that you don't act like an idiot on stage. Apparently it works.
Gosh.
Warm-ups.
So I was interested that you gave us an example of the vocal exercises for being in the middle of Africa, but you didn't give us any crow sounds.
Won't be doing that today. That's a private sound.
Oh, come on. I thought we were going to have some fun. All right. All right, I did it.
That was a duck. That was for sure a duck.
Oh, come on. You don't know what the crows are like over here. They're so ducky.
Oh, I remember the crows over there.
And what do they sound like? Oh, I thought that sounded like me.
Do not sleep. Jerks. They're a bunch of jerks.
And so you were telling me before in a conversation that as a result of all the recordings we've been doing for the money season, that you have started organizing your money. Can you give us a bullet point list of what you're up to?
Yeah, one of the things is installing all sorts of apps, and I've settled on just using, this is not a plug for Xero, although let's get an affiliate link and put it in our show notes.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I've been using Xero, and it's pretty good in one way. And I do mention in the interview that we're having today with Chinelle, who is a lawyer, I do mention to her that I have been trying to take photographs of receipts and assign it as a cash sale. However, I can't do that because cash doesn't exist in the land of Xero apps. Anyway, no, because I do have cash and I want to use it. But yeah, I've been organizing my money, just and automating all sorts of things so that everything works smoothly in the back end. And it is so fun. It's like a massive weight off my shoulders.
So you mean like automating the paying of bills and stuff like that?
Yeah, or automating invoices being paid, automating receipting, and I pay for things, people do things for me and I want to pay them, and auto receipting, all that sort of thing. It just saves time, and when I send it off to the accountant or the bookkeeper, they just open it up and access everything. They've just got everything there, and it's just, I don't know, I've never really focused that much on organizing money, but when you do, it's liberating. It's like finding out about crypto and you're like, oh my God, this is a new world.
Wow, that sounds cool.
I don't know if that cool. No, it's definitely not cool.
It does sound cool because it's an area that a lot of us get massive sort of knots in our chests at the idea of having to organize money. And it was sort of like one of those things where you just put two hands up in the air and go, yeah, I'm going to look the other way because I'm just going to battle through. So I actually think it would be quite nice to have a good feeling like that, as opposed to the crunchy feeling of, oh dear, where's that bill I've got to pay? They're about to cut off the electricity.
Yeah. Oh, look, because we all have these blockages. and all sorts of things. And one of my old blockages was the fear of making too much money because I wouldn't know how to deal with it. I wouldn't know how to manage, millions of dollars going into my bank every day. I mean, I definitely don't have millions of fiat dollars or any sort of cryptocurrency going into there at the moment. But you have that. I actually can't do that. And so you can't create it because there's no way that you can manage it. But in fact, what's different, it's all money coming in, and it's taken me years to break that wall down.
And how have you done it?
I don't know. I was just recently, I just thought I really need to organize this because I had these tax and all these things coming up. And I thought, oh my God, I can't deal with my business and I can't deal with all of these things that are going on and have something that can be fixed so simply in the background. Why am I not just fixing that?
Right.
Why? That's just, so I forced myself, and then I researched a couple of applications that I can use because I'm sick of, having all these receipts in a bloody snappy bag. I just want to take a picture and chuck it away, guys.
Yeah. What about the issue? I mean, I looked at those sorts of things and those apps as well, but I was really concerned about surveillance and the people like Xero and all collecting so much information about me. I mean, I guess it's not really any different from using accounting software, online, and they're downloading your bank details. And I still feel a little bit clammy about the idea of all that being in the cloud.
Yeah, and what would make it a lot better is if they gave me some sort of, because they're probably going to share the data, let's face it. If they gave me some benefits, but they don't yet. Apparently that's coming in the future. Data will be a currency, according to one of our interviews in the money season. And I think we spoke about that with Thomas Miller, maybe.
But also remember Nesh Suryan from Bamboo, and he talked about with the Bamboo app, actually asking people permission if they could sell their data and actually offering them a percentage, anonymous data, but it's still your data.
Well, yeah, that would be awesome. And I don't know when that's going to happen, but I believe it will. But at this stage, we all make these sacrifices, don't we? We make a trade for ease of use, for privacy. And that's
that's true. I guess, that's why I was asking, because I know you're a bit of a privacy warrior. So I was interested to know that you had ended up going for organisation over, I don't know, I've always known you to be quite a clear person about not wanting to release information. So that's interesting to know.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I'm going to have to hand over my books. I'm going to have to display all of these spendings anyway.
It's just a question of how many agencies get their hands on that information.
Oh, probably heaps. And I don't trust any person who has my data. So someone's going to get it,
Today we spoke to Chinelle van der Westhuizen, I think, and I know I'm going to get in trouble for that from our South African listeners. Apologies in advance. But Chinelle is a fabulous woman. She is very active in the blockchain scene here in Perth. She's going to be presenting information on blockchain technology to lawyers with Tech Stack, also run by a couple of amazing women that we know here in Perth. And so it's been great to have her on the show finally. It took us a while to get her on, didn't it?
Yeah, we had a few technical difficulties. And from in the interview, it might be because she's not on NBN, but in my experience, NBN is equally as
crap. Yeah, totally. Me too. Yeah. No, but it was a fabulous opportunity because we had a list of very sort of sensible questions, and I really liked this interview because it wasn't that it didn't go sensible, but it got organic and real, didn't it? There's quite a few references to illegal activity and money laundering, which, by the way, do you remember ages ago, there was a really cynical guy. I told you about this. I remember texting it to you when I was in the train once. There's this really cynical guy that I met, and he found out that we'd started a podcast called the Clothesline, and he goes, with all cryptocurrencies, no wonder you're starting a podcast around money laundering, aren't you? Finally, here's your episode, Mr. Cynic. Here's your episode about money laundering.
What's ridiculous is it's those opinions throughout the whole world that had, Ross Ulbricht in the position that he's in, I believe he's just celebrated his 35th birthday in prison yesterday.
Shit.
And when people are listening to this, it'll be probably a couple of months ago. It was his 35th birthday. But right now, as we're recording, it was yesterday and he's stuck in prison because the judge didn't have the correct opinion on what cryptocurrencies and what the dark web and Silk Road. And anyway, I'm just saying, people's opinions are directing the future of this space, and it's pretty annoying.
Well, actually, I'll make sure that I include the 2 interviews with Ross Ulbricht's mum, Lynn Ulbricht, who's an advocate for human rights and trying to get her son to get a fair ruling. And they're very, very moving interviews with a mum about, what happens to your kids.
Well, let's talk about why we do what we do.
Let's talk about that.
Welcome to the Crypto Clothesline. Our show is about helping women join the blockchain wealth revolution for themselves and for their families.
Our names are Amy Rosegoodey and Abiti Catherine Pass, and we're speakers in blockchain and crypto, and we're on a mission.
We're learning together with you, talking about leading experts. We're learning together with you, talking with leading experts in the space, exploring cutting-edge technology projects that are shaping the future for our children.
This podcast is for intelligence and growth, and our values are for peace, harmony, and collaboration on the planet.
Let's have a listen to our interview with Chinelle.
Let's do that. So we would love to welcome to the show today Chinelle van der Westhuizen. She is a law lecturer at the University of Notre Dame in Fremantle, and she's currently researching into regulation of cryptocurrencies, but specifically the regulation on money laundering activities fueled by cryptocurrencies and consumer protection laws. Welcome to the show, Chinelle.
Oh, thanks, Abby. It's great to be on the show.
Thanks, Chinelle, for coming on.
Thanks, Amy Rose.
Now, the very first thing we've got in our notes in big, bolded writing is that Chinelle is not giving legal advice, but she is sharing her personal opinion. Are we in agreement on that, everyone?
Yes, definitely.
So, Chinelle, you're originally South African. You find yourself living in Perth, and you're working in this incredible area with cryptocurrencies and regulation. How did you end up in this situation? How did you get here?
Yeah. All right. Like you've mentioned, I am from South Africa. I completed most of my degrees over there, and I was also admitted as an advocate of the High Court. And then my partner and I really had the opportunity to move to Perth. And it was at that stage, it was about early 2014, when the University of Notre Dame gave me a scholarship to complete a master's by research in the area of blockchain and the regulation of Bitcoin within Australia. And so that is actually where my interest sparked, or it triggered to some extent. And since then, I've been working at the university as a lecturer, and that's the gist of it.
So, Chinelle, from what I gather, you are a bit of a fan of cryptocurrency. And as with many of us, we are of the mindset that we would love a free and open peer-to-peer cryptocurrency because, it's better than having that middleman step in and put his stop sign up. Now, I'm a little bit worried about the red tape and regulation coming into play. And I have a funny feeling that people involved in the legal industry are going to play quite a large role in this. How do you, as a lawyer, see the effect of the incoming regulation on crypto? Is it still going to be pseudonymous and open and free, or how's it going to play out?
Well, that's actually a very good question. I mean, if you have a look at it, I guess the main purpose for these regulations that came into play definitely was because of the Silk Road, the Liberty Reserve cases, we had in 2013, and then also with Mt. Gox in Japan that collapsed for some reason. But I think, yes, blockchain was initially created to be transparent and open, to some extent. However, the regulations, in this particular space could to some extent damage this transparency if regulators do try and regulate it too closely. So I definitely think there needs to be quite a good balance between regulation and how they will still be able to use blockchain in a free and transparent way. So I think it was about in 2014 at some stage that the Attorney General's Department actually mentioned that the Australian Transactions Reports and Analysis Centre, AUSTRAC, is seeing an increase in potential money laundering activities in Australia. And I guess at that stage, they just decided to place some regulation or introduce some regulation into the illegal use of cryptocurrencies. But they did it in such a way that it will not actually stifle innovation, in a sense. So I guess it's a really hard question because we don't really know what the intention of government is with regulation.
I would love to know what the intention is.
Yeah, wouldn't we all love to know what their intentions are?
Do you think, Chinelle, that, and this could sound a little bit disrespectful towards our friends in the government, but do you think they actually know about cryptocurrencies? I mean, it seemed that in 2017 they didn't really seem to be understanding it at all. Do you think there's been the importation of experts and people that can actually demonstrate that it's not the same, it doesn't really work the same as a share, they've got different qualities to other asset classes?
Yeah, so it's actually a tricky question again, only because since the time they've actually started doing those parliamentary debates, they have made a submission or recommendation rather that they have a specific task force look into this particular area. And I guess the experts that are on that panel would to some extent know the intricacies of blockchain and what cryptocurrencies are. I think they are just having real problems with how it fits in with current regulation. And so it is my opinion really that we can't necessarily use current regulation to fulfill what blockchain or the cryptocurrencies want. So it's really up to them to find a way to deal with these types of new issues.
I'm usually a little allergic to lawyers, which is probably why I do these interviews remotely. You're in WA, I'm in Queensland.
Well, now I know the reason. Thanks, Amy.
But I'm just wondering, because you're a lovely lawyer, so this is very easy, but can you bring any final comfort or any comfort to the community about the benefits of red tape? Because there's a bit of a division about that. Like, what do you think? How's it really going to benefit everyone? Particularly, here's one thing, particularly when it's mostly the crypto community who loves crypto, not the rest of the world. So I'm wondering, why is red tape needed for us?
Yeah, well, I guess the red tape is relating to ICOs, for example, ICOs and buyer or investor protection. So really with the ICOs, the Australian Securities and Investment Commission as well as the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission have both made it clear that we want protections for consumers within this area when they purchase, for example, coins or tokens within ICOs, only because those ICOs, for example, mislead and deceive certain buyers. And when, your normal person on the street goes in, see this website on the ICO, thinks, I'm going to make millions of this particular project. That's really what they're looking into in order to protect those particular investors. So in a sense, I think they are actually looking into specifically regulating that area where people are really involved within the crypto space, but they also have the challenge of trying to, try and have it broad enough so that someone who just all of a sudden goes onto the website, see what this is, and then invest without doing their due diligence, try and protect them in such a way without, getting any independent advice. That's why I'm coming back to my first part where I said, it's a very tricky situation with, this technology and the reason why this technology was created in the first place, and whether government decides just to regulate in terms of the crypto industry or whether it's a more broadened industry. So I think people just need to be aware that there are actually, protections for, or some type of protection for them in law, but not everything will be protected at this stage.
So Chinelle, you mentioned Silk Road and perhaps the reasons, and you mentioned ICOs, the ways of, especially in 2017, of raising funds for different crypto projects and blockchain-based projects. And it might be a little bit of a naive question, but I do want to ask, are cryptocurrencies actually used to clean people's money laundry here in Australia? And if so, what are some known cases of that?
That's another good question. Look, there's definitely potential for an ICO scheme, for example, to be involved with some money laundering activities. There are many ICOs out there that actually run lucrative investment schemes, but you always get your normal type Ponzi type schemes and shonky providers that has popped up in the last couple of years in Australia, especially. And this is once again because the ICO provides that particular level of privacy within that structure. And really by blindly, redeeming cryptocurrencies for tokens of some kind, the ICO actually or potentially places themselves in a position where cryptocurrencies may be gained from illegal activity. So I guess because there's a lack of some record keeping within an ICO structure and due to the speed of the transactions that actually happen within that ICO and the lack of oversight, it could be seen as a desirable structure for laundering money. And that is why it's really crucial for these ICOs to need to be aware of the anti-money laundering laws and the consumer protection laws or investor protection laws that apply. And I would really make it clear to those ICOs that, Australia is here to stay in terms of regulating part of what they can regulate at this moment. And so, but there was an ICO scam of, I think it was Dragon Coin, that was seen of some sort of a money laundering scheme. But we had that, and then we also had Mt. Gox, the digital exchange platform that collapsed in Japan, and due to that, the money laundering activities just increased.
So it sort of sounds like it was more an issue of money laundering schemes that were happening outside of Australia, but perhaps affecting Australians.
Yes, that's correct. I mean, there hasn't been a lot of money laundering schemes, I guess, that are very prevalent in Australia yet, but because of all those ones that happened internationally, I guess the Australian government thought they need to put measures in place, just in case something happens. However, I did note that earlier this month, the Australian Transactions Reports and Analysis Centre actually, or AUSTRAC, I'll just refer to it as AUSTRAC, it's easier, they, together with the AFP, made a significant discovery with illegal drug trafficking together with money laundering activities through blockchain. So there was this whole investigation since 2018 or 2017 with this, and so we'll just see where that goes.
Do you have any insight into whether or not you think that the banks, the Australian banks in particular, are going to come out with their own cryptocurrency? And if they do you think that is going to escalate the development of regulations and maybe give you a really high-paying job?
Yeah, good question. Look, another really hard question, only because, it depends from bank to bank, whatever, their interests are. At the moment, I would definitely say there's difference of opinion on this matter. Banks and financial institutions are actually interested in the technology behind cryptocurrencies, and they will probably definitely explore this idea further. But I really think that, the central banks like the Reserve Bank of Australia, for example, they are distancing themselves from cryptocurrencies specifically. And it was interesting that in 2018, there was a report by the Official Monetary and Financial Institutions Forum, which was called Central Bank Digital Currencies. And they actually stated that a number of central banks have been exploring the idea of creating their own cryptocurrencies, but they haven't really pursued it yet. So while central banks, believe that it could be beneficial to explore this particular concept, it still presents challenges, for them within regulation, monetary policies. And I guess they're on this wait and see approach to see how governments react to the regulation of it and whether they can go forward. So I guess they're definitely interested in the innovative part of it, the technology, but how they will utilize it, it's a wait and see game, really.
Chinelle, I heard you speak previously about, I was writing down some notes, and you talked about Ponzi schemes and illegal activity. Yeah. And I don't want to throw you under our bus here, but I was watching episode 4 of The Hidden Secrets of Money by Mike Maloney with my kids, and he was able to demonstrate how the banks, and in this case in America, the banks and the Federal Reserves and other trusted institutions are actually a massive Ponzi scheme, and they're running illegal activity, but we just let them continue doing that. How is it that the very same people that are potentially sort of doing that can be hand in hand with the people making regulations to protect us from the people that are doing that? I find it really contradictory. So, it's almost like the focus is on cryptocurrency, but we'll just completely ignore the whole banking sector.
Well, I guess to an extent, it's the central banks. It's all centralized. It's within a particular community, if you want to say it, within that economy, and they don't really want to have competition in this area. Cryptocurrencies popping up, since, the early days. I guess they really thought that they would, have some control over money and the financial institutions for a really long time. And I think this competitiveness is what is scaring them to an extent. And even though I'm talking about, cryptocurrencies being used for money laundering purposes, a clear example of how it is actually happening on a daily basis is with the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, the money laundering scandal that has been going on since 2016. I don't know if you're aware of this, and where they fined them a record-breaking $700 million for this breach. And so what I'm trying to say is that whether it's payments through cryptos, whether it's fiat currency, they are both actually still subject to money laundering activities. It's just on different platforms, really. So our current regulatory system, yes, we do have regulations for money laundering activities within your general fiat currency type traditional payment systems, but it's still lacking. And, every day there's money laundering activities, going on due to not doing your normal, know your customer policies and procedures, going through the due diligence process. So if you actually have a look at it, the ratio compared to how many money laundering activities there are within financial institutions compared to cryptocurrency, it's actually rather major compared to what cryptocurrencies go through every day. So I guess it's more the sense of the government being scared of how are they going to deal with this particular competitive area of payment systems. Yeah.
Chinelle, we can cut this question if you like, but when I was writing it, I was like, yeah, really want to ask this. So imagine that you're standing in front of policymakers and they ask you, how are they going to best regulate these annoying Gen Y libertarians with utopian pipe dreams for a free and decentralized currency? What are you going to say to them? Because I'm pretty sure they're going to get people like you with giant brains to try and control the movement. What would you say?
Question.
I actually...
What did you say about libertarian Gen Ys with pipe dreams about a utopian future? That was a bloody good one.
That is actually a pretty good question. I've never thought of it myself, which is I'm going to make a note of it now, just in case I get that question again in future. So look, good question. I guess I don't really have a clear answer for this, but what I would suggest is to actually do, some or do really good research in this area, try and understand the concepts of why this industry is here, and try and not really, how would I say, use old and current regulation to try and fit this new model of law into those particular models. So they really need to think outside the box, because this is a very different area. It's a new area. It's an upcoming area. And they can't place it into a box and think, all right, we've regulated this, now we can move on. So they really need to do their research. They really need to talk to people about it, try and get an understanding of how people feel about it, whether people even know about it, people in the industry, how they feel about being regulated, how it's being regulated. I mean, it's such an exciting area. And I'm sure some people in the cryptocurrency field or industry would actually support some level of regulation if it is done correctly. So they need to find a new way to deal with this new area of law. So that's what I can say.
Hopefully they actually will come and talk to you.
Well, after this question, they might just, Abby.
They might
they might go to the old school red tapers.
Yeah. Look, I really think they need some new minds, creative minds.
I think they need some annoying Gen Ys with libertarian. I didn't get the whole thing. I tried to write it down, but just what she said.
So they really need to consider it, because otherwise they're just going to keep preparing or creating legislation, or actually just amending current regulation the way they've always done it.
I can pretty much tell you what's going to happen. But
Go on. Let it go. Let's hear it.
Negatron. I'm a negatron. They're just gonna be like the way that they've always been. There's been new technologies for a very long time, and it's all the same. They don't do anything different. Everything is the same.
Yeah.
They just like put a sticker on it saying, "Yep, that fits here." You know, that's money.
Yeah.
That's
So it's
whatever.
It's really copy and pasting or cutting and pasting things into different areas where they think it should fit. But I think they really need to understand the concept of what cryptocurrency actually is.
Do you remember? I mean, when you said they really need to sit down and look at the concept, I think the issue is also like a generational one. And it's interesting that you brought in the Gen Y analogy or reality, Amy Rose, because recently with that terrible shooting in New Zealand, there was a friend of mine, and I wish I could bring it up, but she just wrote this diatribe about old, crusty men in government who are not, I don't know, I'm going to sound sexist, ageist, terriblest in every possible way here, but I'm sort of thinking in order for government and policymakers to really be able to embrace what cryptocurrency potentially could be, they need to be able to look at the world through a new set of lenses, through new glasses. And as long as your policymakers are still of sitting in their cushy positions and they've got their, massive incomes, even once they're retired, they're hand in hand with the banks and they're hand in hand with those institutions that have been in place for so long and have been regulating us to their own benefit for so long that I'm really cynical about them really ever getting a bird's eye view, a different perspective on how this could be and how it could really impact on our families, on our future, on the planet. You've even got that conversation that Swedish girl brought up. Oh gosh, I've just had a mental blank and I've forgotten her name. Help me out here.
Greta Thunberg?
Yes, Greta Thunberg. Yeah, and thank you. And she, I've been, getting my kids to listen and watch her, and they went along to the rally and marched against climate change, but. As she said, you can't just keep doing things the way we've always done them because you'll end up with the stuff you'll always end up with, that we've always had. No. So it's a moving and shaking situation, but it feels like the powers that be are sort of sedimenting down into the same old. And that's, I think, what the frustration is.
At some stage, when all of this, was a hype in terms of regulation, early 2013, 2014, the government was very much say, oh, we'll wait and see what all the other governments will be doing, internationally. Now we're in 2019. I guess they can't really use that excuse anymore. It's it's like, for example, in Japan, where they now have a legal tender and legal status for cryptocurrencies, and having a specific code just dealing with cryptocurrency. So I think really the government can actually now look at other international countries and see how they've dealt with it, and they're dealing with it great in some aspects. In other aspects, they don't, so don't get me wrong. But there are ways in which they can actually make really good recommendations and ask people for parliamentary submissions and get their views on it.
I guess you would have to have faith that you feel like your government and your local leaders actually listen to you. I mean, that's I think, the cynicism that's underwriting all of this, because we had a conversation with Dr. Brad Pettit, who's the mayor of Fremantle, and it was a great conversation. But part of that was, okay, so Brad, do you think that blockchain technology being introduced, which is the technology backing up cryptocurrencies, and this is an aside from the money argument, but it's kind of right up there with government. Do you think that blockchain technology could have an effect on voting, and do you think that's a positive thing? Excuse me, he was quite open to that. I think there are quite a few politicians that would be quite frightened at the idea that they have to do what they said they're going to do at the election promise time.
It's an interesting and fascinating area, and I think people really need to be open to the idea, at least in exploring it, and we'll see how governments react to it.
That went a little bit off the question list, didn't it?
Amy Rose.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Before we go, there is a question that we usually ask all of our guests, and that is, what is your favourite quote?
Favorite quote? Well, I do have a couple of favorite quotes, but I guess it depends how I feel on the day, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But no, but one of my favorite quotes is from Dr. Seuss, which says, "Why fit in when you were born to stand out?" I really like that particular quote because I think being exceptional in things you do on a daily basis and how you show compassion to others while pursuing your dreams is actually what makes you stand out. And this actually resonates a lot with, blockchain and cryptocurrencies as well, because it is such an outstanding and different area. I mean, if you pursue it, you will naturally stand out from others that just want to do your normal day-to-day things. So that's my quote.
Chinelle, I had another very quick question. What is money, do you think, and what do you think the future of money is?
Another interesting question. You have so many interesting questions. I mean, it's just I can understand why you say you can talk about this the whole day, but we don't have the whole day. All right. So I guess I have two viewpoints on this. So my professional opinion in terms of what money is that it is actually just something that can be used as some accepted medium of exchange, which provides a unit attached to that exchange, and then of course can be stored at a certain value for investment purposes, and this can be seen as your day-to-day type purchasing of common goods with some value and legal tender attached to it. But that is a boring view, so we'll get to my personal view.
Do a clothesline view. Do a clothesline view.
Where I really think, okay, I'll do a clothesline view. We'll step away from the legal points. No, and on a personal note, I think money is really viewing the relationships it creates and how our culture, values, and backgrounds play a role in how we perceive money at this stage in our lives. Now, for example, I can just quickly say that many African countries still use barter transactions and commodities of some kind to pay for goods or services, whereas first world countries, electronic commerce has taken over the payment system world, all right? But if you actually really think about it, all these different ways of paying for goods or services is actually just a means by which that person is utilizing the money. So it's just on a different scale and in a different market. And, the quote by Afro Bain, I don't know if you know Afro Bain, he said that money speaks sense in a language that all nations understand. And I think what I've just said resonates with me, and I think this has been the case throughout centuries where money has evolved in such a way that it actually adopts itself to different situations.
So you see cryptocurrency potentially being part of the future of money, or do you see them existing side by side?
Yes. Well, I think when you talk about it, I actually think back to when my parents bought me that little piggy bank. Can you remember those piggy banks? And and you use it to save your pocket money. And I don't have kids of my own, so I'm wondering whether parents still do this, seeing that
my kids don't have one, but they
so
do
far along in society. Abby, I'm going to buy them one. We need to still keep that traditional authenticity of money going.
Do they really? I keep teaching them, don't put your money into a bank and don't put your money under the mattress. Just put your money into something that'll make you money. So I feel like it's a kind of a mixed message, but I could say it's from Auntie Chinelle.
No, I'm actually, to be honest, I know I'm quite young, but I'm actually very old-fashioned, and I actually have a very old soul. So any type of, antique, I would actually still enjoy. I think there is potential for a cashless society in the near future. With the encryption and other technologies providing for such opportunities, I think that money will never actually lose its characteristics, but it definitely has the potential to change shape, which will probably not include coins and paper notes. I'm not saying it's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years, but we're definitely on our way to looking into that area.
I think it's definitely happening in the next 5 to 10 years. We're all not going to say it.
Yeah, look,
No, well, I've been listening to a lot of futuristic thoughts, and a lot of them are very aligned on one particular thing, and that is that, you know, there's not really a place for cash.
look, I'm excited for what the future holds, and how cryptocurrencies and blockchain will actually change. You know, I won't say the world, but to some extent, but specifically the financial industry. You know, the future of regulation at this stage is very unclear. I mean, some countries embrace it, some others don't. And I guess with the bits and pieces of legislation that we actually do have, it might create this debate on whether regulation is in fact needed, and if so, to what extent.
I think listening to the kind and wise words of Sophie
Oh,
Amat,
yes.
who's been on the show, a practicing Buddhist, she says, I think that the Australian ATO and policymakers have been incredibly generous because we are allowed to spend
That's right.
cryptocurrency in our country, and in a lot of countries they're not allowed to do that. It's totally banned. So I think we're already,
Yep.
we're not doing so bad
No,
if you look at us on the
of course
global
not. Yes.
sliding scale of crypto
And
friendliness.
I guess part of this, you know, what is the future for money, is really government making that choice, having a balance between regulation, transparency, and how it will impact upon persons in the crypto industry using it. So there needs to be a clear balance.
Oh, it's been a pleasure having you on today. Thank you.
Thanks, Chinelle. Bye. So we did go a little bit off track. We talked a lot about regulation.
We did go a little bit off Oz track. Wah, wah, wah.
I really think that's good, but I really, really needed to ask someone with the legal brain, you know, what they think is going to happen. So I'm really glad that I got to do that.
What do you think is going to happen? I know you talked about being a negatron, but do you think we're going to get younger people in government who can actually have more mind flex to answer questions and be able to, to ask the right questions and then find suitable solutions?
I think that we're lacking ethics and ethics committees and ethical behaviour in writing legislation and regulating. I just think that there's no one saying, wait a second, if you do this, if you say this, then that's going to be detrimental on our society, and that's actually not going to help humans. If we talk about humans and human development and cryptocurrency as a peer-to-peer electronic cash, I think that's keeping that element is really important, and that's good for the world. Right? However, without people saying we've got to think about humans here, they're going to go along the same track and think about what's best for the governing bodies and the banks and the institutions. They're going to say, how are we going to control what's happening, rather than how can we allow people to flourish in this new technology? And I just think there's just not enough thinking about the possibilities. It's all about making it concrete and hard and regulated.
And I also think it's all about protecting what they've got. So if you've got the sort of Great Wall of China built and then you say, all right, well, we just want to crumble that and get something new from IKEA. Not that I'm saying blockchain is like IKEA, but do you know what I mean? Actually, wasn't there something about IKEA? IKEA's just introduced blockchain for a blockchain tech. There's something about IKEA and blockchain that came up recently. Anyway, random thought. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I heard about that too.
Yeah. It just feels like you're needing to shake the institution from its foundations. And Pink Floyd, The Wall comes to mind. We don't need no education. You know, that whole idea of the institutions are so firmly entrenched in our culture and in our society and in our thinking and even in our feeling safe that we just don't question any of it.
I don't know how many people are feeling safe with the institutions now anyway.
But you're not safe. Like, but you know that notion of comfortable discomfort? Like if you turn around and say, okay, let's just throw a Thermomix in the middle and just whiz everything up and start again. Like in order to, who was it? Somebody said, like, instead of trying to somebody really famous said, instead of trying to reinvent the current system, let's just create a parallel world that is working and just let the current system, you know, generally just atrophy by itself, you know, just drop off. But in terms of government, especially a sort of so-called stable government like the Australian one, people maybe don't feel safe, but at the same time, they're not exactly just going to go and run out and find an alternative. People are complacent.
You know when they tell you your business will only succeed if you're solving a problem, and then it's not going to make any money unless you solve a problem. I just think that, they're not going to really care. No one is, until people realize that what the money they have is failing, and there's the problem. We need a solution, and that's when crypto will come in.
You do know, during the interview, Chinelle said that in parts of Africa there's still a barter system, and I had this visual image. I said, well, we barter pieces of paper. Like, here, I'll give you a 20 and you give me 10.99 back, whatever, 10.99, that doesn't exist anymore, 10.95. But there's this, this notion that all we're actually doing is swapping arbitrary, completely valueless pieces of paper with funky designs on them. And in the case of American dollars, when I was there, I had to constantly study them because I didn't know a 1 from a 2 from a 10 from a 20 because they all look identical. At least we've got color-coded notes.
So outdated. The whole thing. I don't care how many colors they have on it.
Well, my love, I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will catch you on the other side.
See you next week.
Crypto Clothesline.